Good morning everybody, Chris from the Headache and Pain Management Centre here, and today I'm answering a question that came through on the message regarding 3 different types of headache. So this particular person who got in touch with us complained of having a headache at the back of the head one day, another headache that comes into the eye which is associated with nausea, vomiting and all these sorts of things the next day, and this overall tension compression type headache that she gets at other times as well. Okay, so after some stress or perhaps after doing a lot of work. So I thought I'd answer the question today about a person that has 3 different types of headache and migraine, and explain how it's possible to have both migraine and tension headache on different times of day at different days. So I hope this is really helpful for you. If you are joining me, please say hello, type in the comments underneath and drop us a line. And of course, if there's any questions, let us know. So hey, let's just talk about exactly what's going on here when we're talking about 3 different types of headache in the same person. Now it all comes down to how things are defined. So what is a tension headache? What is a migraine? Okay, so what's really important to know is that when you are diagnosed with a type of headache or migraine, say for example, a migraine or a tension headache, it's actually diagnosed symptomatically. So it's not telling you anything about what's necessarily causing the problem to happen, but rather actually a list of symptoms. So if you're diagnosed with a migraine, then basically what it's telling you is that you've got a throbbing one-sided headache that can come between 6 to 72 hours, which is preceded by an aura or not. It's associated with nausea or vomiting or sensitive to light, neurological symptoms that are completely reversible. And often these types of migraines are defined dependent on the type of aura that you get and also the type of symptoms that you get in which part of the brain's affected. So basically it's diagnosed symptomatically rather than what the cause is. And with tension headache it's much the same. So they're diagnosing with regards to a throbbing compression type headache, often with muscle spasm at the back of the head that can be continuous, or it can last between 3 hours and 72 hours depending on how it's defined. So those sorts of things are diagnosed symptomatically. So if you come into your GP or your doctor or your neurologist and you've had a diagnosis of say tension headache and migraine and perhaps cervicogenic headache or something, it is possible to have 3 different diagnoses, which really is confusing because the way that it's all defined, it's pretty murky. It doesn't really tell you anything about the cause of what's going on. G'day there, nice to see you. So basically when you're diagnosed with 3 different types of headache, are there 3 different causes? Now the answer to that question in my opinion is no, there's not. There's actually 1 cause, not 3. And this is backed up by some research that's coming out of the US. It's certainly last decade become more and more prevalent that this is actually the case. So what they're talking about now is that with regards to tension type headache, migraine and other types of headache and migraine conditions, primary headache conditions that is. So these are headaches that aren't caused by things like tumours or strokes or concussions or medication overuse or viruses, nothing like that. But headaches and migraines that don't particularly have anything that's extra on top of it, that just happen as a result of just happening, like they're just there for no apparent reason. So primary headaches and migraines. G'day Lockie, good to see you there, buddy. So when we're talking about headaches and migraines, we're talking about primary headaches and migraines. They actually do have a continuum, okay? So one person's headache might be another person's migraine, depending on how you define it. Some people have a low-grade headache which can turn into a migraine, and it's defined differently depending on what the symptoms are. So it's very confusing. However, when it boils down to it, you've actually only got one thing that's going on here, and this is the thing that we target here when we're treating headaches and migraines. And what that thing that we're looking at is a sensitization at the back of the brain, top of the spinal cord, bottom of the brain, of the nerve center, if you like, that takes in all of the information from the top lip up and over to the back of the neck. So all of the nerves that pass in through the same area there, all of between here and here, all go into the same area of the brain. Okay, so what that means is that your brain can actually get tricked. So if there's something wrong with one part of that area, it can cause pain to happen somewhere else in that area. Now here's the thing, when you've got a headache like my lady that texted previously, okay, so you've got a headache that's like a baseball bat right across the back of the head, one that feels like a red hot poker in the eye, and the other one that feels like a compression right through the front of the head. Basically what that tells us when we're looking at the way that things are happening is that there are 3 different types of headache that they get from 3 different areas that are referring pain. Okay, so this is going to, blow a few minds here, that when you look at someone with a headache or a migraine, it's actually really important to know where the pain is. Okay, because where the pain is in the head pretty much directly responds to what's referring to it. Okay, so what we find is that if someone has an issue with, say, the C2-3 joint in their neck, it's more likely to be a headache that comes up and over and into the eye. If it's something from the top joint, sort of in between the skull and the neck, then it's more likely to be a compression type headache around like this, or sort of a localized sort of area in the forehead or the temple. And if there's an issue with both of them, so C2-3 and the joint below the skull, then it can be all over the head. It can feel like over the top, around the side. It just feels like your head's about to explode. So on day to day, when you have different things going on where there might be one in the eye, one in the back of the head, one here, one that goes over, one that goes around, it's actually which joint is your brain listening to at that time. Okay, which joint is giving the most signal up into that nerve center and telling your brain that there could be a problem there, or it thinks that there's a problem there. So here's the point. When you've got 3 different types of headache and migraine, it's very confusing for your doctor and yourself. It actually might not be as confusing as it looks, because basically the same thing is causing the pain to happen. And that's that sensitization at the bottom of the brain, top of the spinal cord, of that nerve center that takes all the nerves in. And then what happens is that your brain sort of localizes the pain to a spot, whether it be left over the top, all over the head or whatnot, depending on the joints which are most affected at that time. Or the joints, probably more correctly, that is sending the most signal and being listened to by your brain at that time. It's a little confusing to get your head around, but it's not dissimilar to something like sciatica. So if you've got someone who's got leg pain, nerve pain into their buttock, into their leg, things of that nature, but the problem is in their back, you can have the one problem but have pain that's in different spots on different days. And certainly what we're seeing here with the Headache and Pain Management Centre is that when we're seeing people with headache and migraine, it's exactly the same concept. If you've got a pain that's in the one eye, it's generally on the C2-3 on that side. If it's all over the head, it's likely to be the joint below the skull on both sides. So really what you're wanting to do is to look at the joints individually, see which direction those joints need to move in more to get the best result, to wind down that system, that nerve center at the back of your brain there that's causing all the problems. So that's the thing. If you've got 3 different types of headaches that's been diagnosed in 3 different areas, it's likely there's 3 different joints is affected. And then if you've got an exploding headache that's all over the place, then it could be all of the joints put together being the cause of that. Hey, I hope that's been helpful, and I hope the person asked that question, I can't remember her name off the top of my head, but if you're watching, I hope that answers your question, and I hope that gives you a bit of an insight as to how these things can look confusing, but it's actually quite simple to have a look at, especially when there's no other things going on like tumours or strokes or any other nasties that are going on. So if there's any other questions from the comments, I can see that there's a few there watching. G'day there. If there's any questions underneath, please type them in, because I'd love to answer them for you either in the comments or on another video, because hey, we're all about educating the public. We're all about getting the word out there about the neck and its relationship with headache and migraine. And there's more to do with migraine and headache than just taking really strong mind-altering medications to get on top of them. We'll see you next time for the next video, and from me, it's bye for now.